And you guys are live.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the August 16th meeting of the Town Board. Carol, if you'll call the roll call, please. Present.
Present.
Here. Present. If everyone could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so we're going to start this morning's meeting with the public portion, and we'll hear from community members. And then we'll move on to our topics, which include the new Senior Center Community Engagement Report from our architects, R2 Architecture, and a discussion of Chapter 102-10 Building Permit Revegetation and Sign Permit Fees. And that's David McMaster and Mark Abramson. So let's start with public comment. Is there anyone here? Does it look like
Yes.
it? So,
oh, sorry.
Matt, do you have folks on the line?
Yep, we have one caller on the line.
Great.
Caller 8827, you are live.
Hello, Town Board. This is Joe Karpinski. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Mr. Karpinski.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. I would just like to make you guys aware that I had sent in public comments for the August 4th meeting by email on August 2nd, which I carbon copied the entire Town Board. When I heard that the supervisor stated there was no public comments on the resolution for Chapter 91 beaches and parks, well, I take umbrage with that since I sent that in. Notwithstanding, I'll remind you once again, Bayview Avenue is still blocked by geocubes illegally. At this point, the second illegal row has been exposed behind the first, which is not permitted by anybody. I've once again contacted the DEC, and we would like the immediate removal of those cubes from our roadway, as our rights are violated daily.
Okay, thank you for your comments. And is there anyone else, Matt, who's interested in speaking this morning?
No, there's no other callers.
Okay, great. So let's start with our topic, the new Senior Center Community Engagement Report with R2 Architecture. There should be Ryan Gann and Renette Riley in the waiting room.
Yep, they're coming in right now. Ryan, you can put yourself back on.
Great, we've got Ryan. Is Renette there?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay, beautiful. We just don't see you up on the screen. Okay.
Oh, hold on. Hold on. I got to figure that out. There.
Okay, beautiful. Well, good
Great.
morning and thanks for joining us today. We've got some time this morning. We've got a short agenda, so it's a great opportunity for, the board and the community to hear about the community engagement that we embarked on and what the process is going forward. So, Renette, I understand you were going to start.
Yeah, just introduce our team again. It's R2 Architecture, which is a joint venture between Carol Ross Barney Architects and Renette Riley. Ryan Gann, who's going to lead the walkthrough for our community outreach, spearheaded this portion of our project. And so I'm just going to turn it over to Ryan.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much, Renette. And I think the last time that we presented for the town board was right before our in-person sessions in May of 2022. So it's exciting to be back, and it's exciting to sort of share where we've been, what we've been up to, and the great amount of feedback that we've received from the East Hampton community. So since that initial trip, we've been collaborating really closely with Deputy Supervisor Kathy Burke-Gonzalez and Director of the Department of Human Services, Diane Patrizio, to sort of get this project up and going and begin to stitch together and weave the commentary that we heard in person throughout May, the information that we received from our broader community survey and digital survey that was released, which received about 400 responses, which is great data to work off of, and beginning to translate that into a building program, as well as beginning to see how that translates into actual architecture and design.
Goodbye.
So I'm going to share my screen really quickly. Let's see, we're going to do this one. And let's see, can you all see
Yes.
the
We're
cover?
good.
Great, beautiful. So this is the report that's available online now, and everyone can sort of take a peek at this at their leisure. I'm going to go through at a pretty high level, sort of talking through some of the emerging themes, some of our process, and then talking a little bit about what our next steps are. So as I mentioned, in one moment here, I just need to As I mentioned, we kicked off this process in May, end of May, right before the season started, with a series of virtual conversations and in-person conversations with current users of the Senior Center, as well as a sort of open house listening session at Town Hall. We also met with Human Services staff, had a deep dive about the logistics of the building, what works, what doesn't work in our future shared vision for the new Senior Center. We walked the current site. We didn't get into it. It's nice and wooded, which is amazing, an amazing opportunity. But we did sort of get to see the context there, boots on the ground. In tandem with that, as I mentioned a little bit earlier on, we released a digital survey. So we've engaged virtually through Zoom, we've engaged in person, and we also did sort of a passive approach to receiving feedback. That received about 400 responses, which is a statistically significant amount of data for us to begin to work from, and certainly for the town to continue to use and leverage into the future. We've also met with some local historians to talk about both the past, present, and future of East Hampton to give us a little bit of context. I think I mentioned the last time that we were presenting to the town board that we want to become locals. We want to understand the nuances, the celebration, and the opportunity that East Hampton has to provide, and be able to translate that into architecture and translate that into a pillar of the community. Some of the emerging priorities that we've begun to see and sort of our goal then of creating or seeing and elevating these emerging priorities is to begin to allow that to inform both the programmatic spaces, the types of spaces that are in the building, the types of programs that are offered, building on the success of what already exists, and then allowing that to inform the future architecture, the future design. And we sort of did this comparison of seeing what the mission of the Human Services Department is, what that vision is, what those values are, and how we can begin to overlay that and again, translate that into an architectural and built space. That the new senior center is welcoming, warm, friendly, that it's a home away from home, that it's net zero energy, that it's an environmental steward, that it's a space for wellness, that it's open and airy. These are sort of our North Stars moving forward. And we've begun to see some pretty clear themes emerging about programmatic opportunities and sort of the intent of elevating some of these upfront, and then we can dig into some of the data, is to begin to see, once we start to decide the types of activities, the types of programs that exist within the building, some of those spaces are very, very specific. A coffee bar, needs plumbing, it needs a sink, it needs sort of the support for that specific function, or a cooking class, let's say, whereas a poetry reading, a library, or table games are maybe a bit more flexible. So understanding, and this is not necessarily all-inclusive in this diagram, but sort of beginning to see what are needs that are very specific and what types of spaces can help support those, and what are sort of more flexible, can kind of happen in a variety of multi-purpose spaces, and allowing that to begin to inform the programmatic spaces. So long life, loose fit is sort of the theme here moving forward. And so at a really high level, our engagement method and analysis was to empower equitable participation, doing various platforms, various ways of engagement, various ways of communication to ensure that those that engage, speak differently, share their opinions in different ways, find a platform that best represents their mode of communication. Building trust throughout this process. We're here again reporting back publicly about what we've heard and how this begins to take us forward. elevating current user voices, and I think really importantly too, identifying future user voices. Who are the future users of this new senior center, and how can they begin to help shape and enrich the community that embraces this building, and really celebrating this amazing opportunity to enhance East Hampton together. So that's sort of at a high level, the, let's say, executive summary of where we've been, what we've seen. And now I'm going to sort of walk through sort of a capture and a snapshot of some of the activities that we did while we were in person, and then I'll round out that conversation with some of the results from the online survey, giving us, again, a pretty big statistical data analysis opportunity. So when we were in person, we find it amazing that the new senior center sort of services an amazing amount of space, so almost 23 miles long throughout East Hampton, and sort of seeing who attended that day at least, where people live, where they work, where they play, and sort of seeing how the senior center begins to fit into that context, into that fabric of the civic life, of the daily life of our community that lives in East Hampton. We also looked specifically too at the site and asking those that are familiar, that know this like the back of their hand, and sort of seeing what are some of the sticking points, what are some of the opportunities, and how can we keep that in mind as we begin to move forward. Lots of conversation about circulation and traffic, parking and access, preserving nature. It's an amazing wooded site. How do we continue to capture that and make this a unique location? And what are the connections to other community assets, other civic assets, other recreational assets, and how does this sort of fit the new senior center? How does that fit within that context? And then we also began to ask really specific questions that were still open-ended enough to say, what are the types of programs and spaces that we want to see? And we did it through a visual exercise. We're visual learners as designers, and we suspect that lots of others are too. And what this allowed to do was sort of open the doors to a broader conversation about what are the types of spaces that the new center should have, what's really great about the existing center, and how do we begin to build on that, expand that, and enrich that experience. We heard a lot about places to eat, the importance of a coffee bar, outdoor games, outdoor exercises, that engagement with nature, places to gather indoors and outdoors, that community building aspect, warm, friendly, welcoming, and started to see, generally we're kind of on the right page in terms of some of these inspiration images that we brought along with us in May. We also started to ask then too more specifically about those types of ideas, and this is where some of those emerging priorities come from. We heard a lot about connection to outdoors. We heard a lot about activities that build on the existing offerings of the senior center, arts and wellness specifically tying in and elevating as maybe some subcategories of those activities, the importance of the dining room and the socialization quality of that. And we heard a lot of comments that were very specific about design and site opportunities and sustainability that we really take to heart. So we went through and started to see where are these themes, how many comments, that's what we see in parentheses there, how many times did that show up? And again, this is from the in-person engagement where we engaged with about 120 people over the course of those in-person and virtual sessions, and beginning to see where some of the themes, some of the continuity, some of the overlap is beginning to emerge. We also asked too, so if those are sort of our structured questions, we wanted to have some unstructured space for commentary that is more illustrative of the broader community and also illustrative of some of the priorities and guiding principles that we started with. So we had these little writing cards. I believe that our board and installation, so to speak, was living at Town Hall and being engaged with actively. My vision for the East Hampton Senior Center is ... And we saw some of the same themes emerge: the importance of these activities, the importance of design, the connection to nature, the site opportunities that we have, the importance of dining and socialization and wellness, that the new center should be a space for lectures, forums, and seminars for continued learning opportunities, a space for wellness, natural light, and nice views, a home away from home. We saw that earlier on too, and dedicated to improving the quality of life for those 60 and over. Paired with that, we asked, in one simple word or short phrase, what is East Hampton? How do we get to the essence of this community? And how can the new senior center begin to uplift that essence, that it's gorgeous, that it's paradise, it's not monochromatic. There's tradition, there's historicism, there's classics. There's this sense of really strong community. It's eclectic and very diverse. And it's a gift every single day. We heard that in a couple of different phrases and ways. So how do we begin to sort of take that, package that, and let that inform the design moving forward? We also asked about naming, knowing that when we first kicked off this project with Kathy and Diane, we heard some friction points and just wanted to provide the forum for the conversation to take place. We as designers aren't going to be the ones that sort of say where we go with this or what it tells us into the future, but I do think it's important information to have that pulse, to have that catalog and have that sort of understanding of where the community is at. Overwhelmingly from our in-person engagement, people really love that it's called the East Hampton Senior Center. And I think as we begin to talk more specifically about programmatic opportunities and spatial opportunities, we'll begin to see how that evolves into the future. So that was all of our in-person engagement. From July 12th, most of July, in essence, right after the holiday until the end of the month, we had an online virtual survey to allow us to take what we had learned in person, modify slightly, ask some more targeted questions here, open-ended questions there, and get a little bit more data that we can sort of build the foundation for both the program and the design of the building moving forward. We received about 400 responses, which is absolutely excellent. Excellent to see that level of engagement, excellent to begin to engage with a new audience and a more diverse audience, which is really the important part of inviting voices to the table, being equitable, being inclusive. One thing to note here too, on question 3, we did specifically ask who had attended our May sessions, and about 93% of respondents had not. So this is a new audience that we're reaching. These are new voices and perspectives that ultimately, after reviewing this data, pair quite well with what we had heard in person. Overwhelmingly, a lot of these responses were from full-time and part-time residents, and sort of a pretty good mix across the hamlets, but unsurprisingly, we're getting lots of participation from our friends in East Hampton and Springs. We also asked pretty targetedly, have you visited the current senior center in the past 5 years? We're about a 50-50 split. So again, that begins to tell us a little bit about the types of data that we're seeing. We also recognized that the new center sort of exists within the fabric of public facilities in the community, and sort of wanted to see where else are people engaging in their public life, where else are they engaging with civic services, and how can we begin to think about the new senior center within that suite of opportunity that's provided. Again, we asked one word or phrase, and you can sort of see this when we talked to the historians, this past, present, and future evolution. Unsurprisingly, we're seeing some of those bubbles emerge and some of those ideas emerge as well. But really this idea of paradise, beauty, community, that it's a special place, it's peaceful. How do we begin to bucolic, idyllic? How do we begin to capture that in architecture and build space and represent the ideals of the community in which this building serves? We also began to see a little bit more data, at least centered around this, but also some similar themes related to the types of commentary that people were providing. If you were designing the senior center, we're asking this to our respondents, what would their priorities be? Accessibility in a lot of different various ways, from both the cost, location, transportation, and actual access into the building. From a programmatic perspective, unsurprisingly, lots of comments coming there, lots of really great comments as well, and also some really great design feedback. We're here to listen. That's part of this process. We're absorbing like sponges, and now as we move forward, there's an opportunity to begin to turn that and translate that into the design of the building. We also then asked, the same question, again, a bigger data set of what the new senior center should be called. Overwhelmingly, we're really loving the idea of East Hampton Senior Center, but we're also seeing some nuances, some play on words, some broader interpretation, and more inclusive language. So this is great data for the town to have as they move forward, and just sort of capturing it here as a great reference point. What I think is interesting too is we began to ask specifically about what types of activities would respondents want to see. Overwhelmingly, we're seeing exercise hit the top of the mark. We're seeing workshops, classes, continuing education and learning paired with lectures a little bit. We're seeing the importance of the dining room and a coffee bar sort of elevating itself as the center, the heart. We all gather around a table and break bread together. That sort of idea, how do we begin to translate that into the new building? And then the slow gradient going down between outdoor gardens, arts, social clubs, games, outdoor games. And this just sort of helps us define how big are some of the spaces that we need, what types of spaces do we need to support these identified opportunities right now, but also there's an exciting future available to us that once the new building is opened, there will be opportunities and ideas that we had never thought of throughout this process that the building will be able to facilitate. We also asked a pointed question about when do you want to visit the center, and starting to see that it's kind of charting the course of the entire day, and how do we begin to look toward that in the future about use, about ongoing activity and activation. We also wanted to be pretty intentional about understanding our age demographics of who is responding. Overwhelmingly, we're getting our target audience of 60 plus, and then comparing that to the census too for East Hampton. Same with identity. Also, just a quick note here, we saw, and we're sort of curious, there's a lot more self-identified women responding to this survey. What does that mean? And is there anything sort of in that? So we did a little research and found out that from the National Council on Aging, about 70% of senior center participants are women. So that's about where we are in terms of responses in the survey too. And we also asked for respondents to describe themselves and their identities. And we paired that then between what we got as responses from the survey and census data to sort of just track, capture, and see where the voices are in the room. I'm almost done. Thanks for hanging in there. So next steps moving forward, which is really exciting. So maybe Kathy, if we want to pause before next steps and end with next steps, I'll sort of take your lead on how we want to review this portion.
Why don't you talk about the next steps, and then we can see if the board has questions.
Cool. Okay, so September is hot on our heels. It's amazing that the summer is almost over. We're going to kick off. We've been working really closely with Kathy and Diane on the core program. We're really close to that. How big is this building? What types of spaces are in it? Now we're going to kick off with a concept design workshop. We'll most likely be back in town, which will be really exciting. We're also going to pair that too with a sustainability workshop early on in the design process to elevate those questions, elevate those curiosities and opportunities early in design to allow us to really make it integrated. And then we're going to go through a bunch of iterations. We, as a design firm, believe that there's no one single answer to any design solution. There are probably millions. We'll begin to evaluate what those opportunities are, provide a multiple site building concepts, and throughout October begin to really refine those. Some of them will be beautiful Frankenstein versions of ideas, and we'll begin to see how that translates. And as we head into the fall in November, we'll begin to continue that iteration, and hopefully we'll begin to report out again, and you'll get to see this sort of captured timeline. Today, we've talked about the data that we've received so far. What's the foundation of design? Moving forward, we'll be able to report back out on how that design process has evolved, what's happened, and how it's been informed through conversations and workshops. That's all I got for you.
So why don't you take down the PowerPoint and so that you and Annette can join us again. Beautiful. So what I did want to talk to the board about, when we went out for RFP for this, one of the other considerations with building the new senior center was that we were going to include the East Hampton Food Pantry. And when the team was out back in May, we did a tour of the food pantry And there was discussion involved that they really didn't need the same kind of finished space that we would be doing for the senior center. There was some talk about how it would be navigating in the building, traffic circulation. And just last week, Peter and myself sat down with Russ Calamo and Vicki Littman to talk about the food pantry. And it turns out that they would prefer to stay here, that it's working for them, although they do need a little bit more space. And we talked about how we could help them with that. It looks like the East Hampton Food Pantry is going to stay here on the Town Hall campus. It's centrally located. People know where it is. They've got their systems in place. So we're not going to be pursuing that in the new building. So with that said, do board members have questions, thoughts, comments for our team, for Ronnie and Ryan?
Ladies first. Yeah, ladies
No, I
first,
just
yeah.
want to say, I really applaud the organization, your group, for putting together all of this data in such an understandable way for somebody that's on the town board and even for the community to see kind of where the community is headed. So thank you so much for getting that information together, for being out here and being part of the community. I think is very helpful, and for listening. And that's what I think you did. And I just want to applaud you for that.
And I would second everything that Sylvia says, and I look forward to the rest of the engagement process. You're really so forward on your community input. It's impressive.
So for me, to get 400 responses
Yeah.
is impressive.
Yeah.
Okay. And then to be able to sort them out in a way which is bite-size attainable is great. So the presentation was well. I think the site itself is a very beautiful, natural, holistic site. You get pine grove forest on there. It's actually backs up against municipal property, MTA property, horse farms. And so it's amazing to see that a lot of what we found out during COVID is a lot of people want to do activities outside. Okay, you're hearing walking trails, exercises, green spaces, gardening and such, in which they can, yes, go do this outside, either by themselves or on a program, but at the same time, do it before or after they come in for a cooking class or for lunch or such. So it seems like we're developing a little bit of a campus there, okay, for activity that has different populations or different user groups in mind, which I think is important there because it is one of the larger pieces of property that the town has that has infrastructure on it right now. And that's great to hear. I think that's what we're hearing. That's what I'm hearing. And to develop that, they, as Kathy and I have discussed, they have a lot of outdoor exercise and physical therapy, apparatus that you can add to it. This is what we need as we age. And this keeps the body strong, and to be able to do it outside is great. I liked also, excuse me for talking a lot.
Go ahead. No.
I also liked how the one slide that you put on there in which adaptability of the building. Okay, what type of programs can be adaptable to spaces, and that all made a lot of sense there. Okay, a large communal space can be divided, changed as needed then too, and so that then you get 3 or 4 programs in one space instead of 4 or 5 spaces for each specific one. So I think that's smart as you're developing and planning a building for 30 years out. Okay, we don't know what's upcoming. All right, a lot of ways. I think we're on target for it, but there's a lot that we can amend and change. So that's great. And just going back to the natural atmosphere of that property, it's actually a very special little spot back in there that I think it can develop. And I look forward to the design elements that the team I know can get to. So I appreciate that. Excuse me for being a little longer.
Yeah, can I come back for just one thing? I was going to give this in my liaison report, but I'm also the liaison to the Anti-Bias Task Force. And one of the things that we talked about just in our last meeting was inclusion. And part of inclusion, the senior center came up as part of the place for inclusion. And in that sort of broader scope was putting together programs that included young, old, age, so that age didn't really matter at this center. If that's something I've heard in your report, that some people are looking for that. But the fact that people in our discussion, that people can get together any age, any level, any ability or disability, any like or dislike of nature or not, if they want to be indoors or outdoors, that this is a place that can happen. I may be putting too much on this new center, but it has come up in other venues as well. So this is going around the entire community, and so I just wanted to bring that up as part of the anti-bias task force is also looking at this as a place of inclusion.
And what we've talked about, and Diane has done research on, is, looking at other centers, is that they have what's called, a town staff member would be a club leader, and they would liaison with the seniors, and they would start their own groups, right? So somebody could start the opera club or the knitting club, or like a lot of it is going to be senior driven, right? They're going to need space to have, their whatever programming, interests them.
And just keep moving in discussion. I think some of the comments you saw about natural light openness. Yeah. The current center, which is 100 years old, is very compartmentalized, right. Small ceilings on there. It doesn't lead to that attractiveness to all generations as in groups, as Sylvia just said. So using that in that space that we have there, I think it's going to be very important for the design going forward. We're set with a certain amount of square footage that we're going to have, lot size and that, but it can be made and look bigger based on the design team's elements now in the architecture. And that's, I think, we're not where you're going to go specialize in right now then too. So I look forward to that setting, and it was great to hear it from the community. And I'm pretty confident you'll be able to move that forward then too.
Renette and Ryan, can you just explain how the concept design workshop works? I know, Diane Patrizio and her team will be participating, myself and Jeremy Samuelson and Eric Shantz from the planning department have been involved. How you see that going forward?
Do you want me to take that one, Renette?
Yeah, go ahead.
So we're going to continue in a very collaborative manner. So the same way in which we've been sort of stepping back and listening, we're going to come to the table with sort of a kit and tools to say, here's what a multi-purpose room looks like, scaled so that it fits on the site. And we're going to say, okay, what kind of relationships do we want these types of spaces to have to each other? How should they be sitting on the site? Where are sort of the high points and low points on the existing topography? And we're going to try to come up with as many ideas as we can about organization, about relationships, about building form together and holistically with all the voices that Kathy just mentioned. And then we're going to leave that meeting with those amazing ideas and the excitement about the future of the center, and begin to sort of evaluate where are the best opportunities for certain orientations, for solar perspective, for access into the site, out of the site, for capturing and engaging with nature, and begin to refine that down to probably 3 different distinct design options. They're going to look dramatically different. We pride ourselves in the idea that we can look in a couple of different directions and begin to see where that may land us, and what opportunities may come from that.
And prior to this, we have met with all of the staff, different programmatic ideas of the staff, transportation, the kitchen, and we've worked out the back of houses, so to speak, sorts of relationships and what size and what needs and what relationship those are. The other thing, because it's a flag lot site, we're concerned about transportation coming in and going out, circulation of cars and buses. And so we'll also come to the table with alternatives for that as well. Our surveyors have already been out to the site, and we've tagged trees or identified trees that we hope to keep as well. So there's other work that's going on in the background.
Right. And then what will transpire at the sustainability workshops, and who's going to be involved in those discussions?
So we want to start the design process off hand in hand. So we will have our Atelier 10, who's our energy consultant. We'll have Kohler Ronan, who's our MEP engineer. Those two consultants have worked together very successfully, and they'll work with us. We'll identify opportunities or possibilities before we start putting pen to paper in terms of getting those relationships, opportunity, and possibilities out there. So, and then we of course want to in those workshops we want to meet with those town representatives that are concerned about the utilities and maintenance and
Right, and we've discussed that'll include the folks from the planning department, natural resources, and Councilwoman Rogers, since she's the liaison to natural resources.
right.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other comments, questions for Renette and Ryan? Well, thank you for joining us this morning. Ryan, and I'm a visual learner, so as everybody has said, you've made it really easy to, and maybe what we'll do is make some of these, this presentation, we'll make copies and have them at the senior center for folks there that want to engage and dig into this. So thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you very
Thanks
much
for having us.
And I'll send that presentation also distributed to my committees in the CAC as well.
Great. Okay, so the last topic we have is discussion of Chapter 102-10, Building Department Revegetation and Sign Permit Fees with David and Mark.
Good morning, town board members.
Good morning and happy birthday, Mark.
Do you want us to sing to you?
Please say no.
Please say no.
Yeah.
And to Lynn Overton also. Happy
Yes.
birthday to her.
So the planning department is seeking to update the application fees for revegetation permits. The last update was in 2016, and the current prices are $225 for the application and $100 per additional visit. The proposed increase is to $550 for the base fee with $225 per additional visit. Town code gives the town board the authority to adjust the fee schedule by resolution. So these numbers were determined by Tyler Borzak and Mark. So if the board has any questions, I'm sure Mark would be happy to answer them.
Can you just repeat that one more time, David?
Yeah,
Sorry, I missed
I
that.
didn't get the schedule.
The last update was in 2016. The current prices are $225 and $100 per additional visit. So it's $225 for the revegetation initial application, and then $100 every time Mark or one of his coworkers has to go out there. The proposed increase will be $550 for the revegetation application and $225 per additional visit. And as I said, the code, it's Chapter 102-10, gives the town board discretion to set the fees for revegetation permits by resolution.
And so how does this compare with other East End towns?
Compared to Southampton, it's much lower, but it's going to be obviously going to be more comparable to what they have. So we don't want to jump it too much. We don't want to discourage people from applying voluntarily. So an increase, I guess, gradually would probably be better rather than jumping it up so much. As right now, the 550 includes initial consultation to go over what needs to be done, and then again, once the plantings have gone in, we then do another inspection to make sure it's done as approved, and then again, if it hasn't been done as approved, we then do another inspection after we've let them know what was done incorrectly, and hopefully they've then fix what was done.
And for each individual inspection, it's $225.
Yes, additional inspection. Again,
Right.
we get the first inspection and consultation to help them put a plan together, and then once the plan is put in, that's included in the 550 fee. And then if that wasn't done as approved, or it has been cleared additionally, then we'll do a second inspection or do an on-site consultation for the 225.
What are the situations you're seeing this in right now? So mostly you're seeing individuals that have over cleared either knowledgeably doing so, or maliciously doing so, or mistakenly doing so? What are you seeing?
I see a lot of both. The most recent has been builders just going in and doing the clearing. And I don't know if they're not aware, or if, we did put a code section in that we're going to actually flag out the clearing line and stake it to make sure that they're aware of the actual clearing line, so they're not going to go past it, so they can't make that mistake of clearing past that line. And hopefully that will alleviate some of the issues. But sometimes it's done maliciously. Sometimes it's done, they've owned the property for such a long time that they might just, move their lawn out a little bit. And then once they go to do a permit or to change of hands with a new CO, that the clearing has changed.
So, but I know our building permits specifically state what they need to do and what kind of permitting and reveg plan. I just would like, if you can enumerate, what kind of staff time you're really talking about when you say a visit or, looking over a plan. I'd like, if you would detail the
Sure.
kind of staff time you're talking about.
So it really depends on the specific property. But, I would have to talk to the landscaper and then trying to actually explain to the homeowner what would be necessary. So depending on the property, between just by consultation, maybe a day or so, like give or take. Then the inspection, depending on the size of the property, again, it's going to be maybe 15 minutes to a half hour, because I'm going to work the entire property, check that the species are correct, make sure that they're actually in the ground and not just laying on top. And then, after that, they would actually have to get a survey to make sure the numbers are right. I'm just making sure that what was approved approximately is what was put in, because we're not licensed surveyors.
Thank you.
When these cases are in court and part of the disposition is the person has to get approved revegetation.
Could you step over to the podium, David, because you're not on screen?
So as I was saying, when these cases go to court for overclearing violations, Mark has to approve the revegetation plan as part of the disposition before we, plead out the case. And that's also staff time, because before each court date, Mark will look and check in on the property and see if the person has complied with the plan, inform me if they've made progress or if, they're kind of pulling our chain, and we need to have a talking to, I guess, with them. So there is significant investment on his end, not just in developing this, but also in implementing it and working with the town attorney's office.
And also the homeowners and the landscapers, builders, and to, put in depositions for if it actually is going to go to a court case. I do have to put together a deposition, make sure it's correct, go back and forth with the attorneys to make sure the wording is right. So, it's a significant amount of time. But, we take every case seriously and trying to, work with all the homeowners that are actually willing to work with us as much as possible.
Thanks, Mark. I always like folks to know exactly, the in and outs of what you're doing in your department.
And the best way to not have to pay for this fee is to stay in compliance initially.
Correct.
So this is a companion piece to what we did earlier with making sure that builders don't have what I always refer to as those oops moments when they go, oh, oops, that stand of trees is gone, darn. So, this is going to help that they now have to follow and have it marked on the property before they ever start clearing. And then there is a fee for revegetation. And although I could entertain something a little bit higher, I'll take your recommendation to do it by steps. Although it did take us from 2016 to 2022 for the next step. So I'm hoping we maybe get those steps. I have seen a lot of overclearing.
Yes.
And I think it's something that we need to get folks to understand that this is unacceptable behavior. And so if, I hope we have are we going to do a resolution on Thursday for these fees? Can we have that done by Thursday?
Absolutely.
Okay. And, then we need to remind ourselves that if we still don't see compliance as much as we had hoped, that we can move forward with larger fees.
Or a fine schedule then too.
Yeah, that would actually help a lot, I think, the fine schedule.
And just for context, what is, so let's say Southampton charging for their,
They're up to, I believe, around 1,200 to 1,600, depending on the size of the property.
Oh, yeah.
And whether it's voluntary or forced upon them.
That's interesting.
so it's a different fine if it's
Yes.
forced upon them.
Yeah, if they didn't, they saw that they were overcleared, then they come present something, or if they were, applying for a building permit and, then they were told that they were overcleared. I think it's a different fine schedule or fee schedule. I think it's a fee, not a fine. So it's like, so it doesn't have to go through the court system.
I thank you. I look forward to seeing you on Thursday.
Me too. I support this.
Great, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And I would support revisiting it.
Okay. Like in 2023, maybe.
Great. So let's move on to liaison reports. David, do you want to start?
Put me off.
Sorry.
Yes, I will start. It's pretty short. I got a report back from John Ryan Jr. about the Hampton Lifeguard Association's traveled. They traveled with 38 juniors from the town of East Hampton and lifeguarding program, and 45 lifeguards to East Hampton town and Southampton town to Hermosa Beach to the national lifeguard tournament this past week. The juniors competed in 7 different events, from distance runs, swims, rescues, and swimming relays, paddleboard races. They all began at 7 a.m., concluded at 6 p.m., so it's a long day. A lot of the parents and juniors were assembled for dinner and commencement afterwards, which was great. So it was a great community that went all the way out to California. Our lifeguard instructors were also given the opportunity to speak about their groups of juniors and amazing accomplishments. Lifeguards competed Wednesday through Saturday in 14 different events, not just once, but heat after heat, and to get to the semifinals and then to the finals, in which we've actually had a national champion again, Amanda Calabrese.
Oh,
And I think 6 times in beach
that's
flags.
amazing.
Yeah. It's quite awesome. And we had some of our senior guards also did very well then too, as I heard also. Anyway, I think what the Chief's reflection, this is John Ryan Jr.'s reflection, is that he could speak for all of the Chiefs and the captains by saying it was truly an honor to compete in the nationals with all of them, and that they are all national champions.
Mhm.
So congratulations to them.
Yeah.
And congratulations. I think the board, I know Kathy put this forward, support helping them get out there. And it just shows at this time of the year that we have a very special program that's out there led by the Ryans and also by Parks and Recreation.
Yeah.
And we look forward to next year's NIPPER program, because the NIPPER programs are the start of those years and for junior lifeguarding. So congratulations to all.
Can I just add that I
Yeah.
understand that the HLA came in 5th overall, and they
Mhm.
were behind, Los Angeles County and
Wow.
Monmouth County. So when you think about the geography of
Yeah.
what, of the folks that they competed against, it's pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
impressive. I have the Montauk Skate Park is getting close to the opening, which still means that it's closed. So
Translated.
as I try to do my dad voice yesterday, and almost every day I go back there, get out of here, everyone. You're not supposed to be in here. So please let it be. We'll have it open probably within 2 weeks for the general public, but it's getting very enticing. It looks beautiful. It's exactly what the board supported. And we look forward to getting there, but stay out, everyone. My dad voice. Okay. I'm going to have 4 specific resolutions on for this week. Every single one, a different member of the board has helped with, either from energy sustainability to drainage, to different liaisonships. We are going to be moving forward with the Stephen Hands Path drainage RFP for the intersection of Stephen Hands Path and 114. We're looking at the Louse Point stormwater RFP, where we're going to be redoing the Louse Point parking area with more permeable work and some other work there. We're going to be looking at the 3 Mile Harbor stormwater abatement on Soak Heights and Fairway. And also we're looking to do an RFP for resurfacing of the Springs tennis and basketball courts. So I'll have those on Thursday for everyone. Try to keep moving forward with what the town and this town board is committed to. And that's all I have.
Great. Celia, you want to go next?
Sure. The Anti-Bias Task Force met, and Catherine King, who is a member of the task force, is working with the Montauk School about the program's going to be called Hidden Bias. And we'll be doing training sessions at the school. Jack Perna, who's also a member and superintendent of the Montauk Schools, is part of this presentation that Catherine is involved in. And they're all very excited for the program and look forward to its implementation in September of this school year. On August 11th, a new diversity show was completed at LTV. I'm hoping it was completed. It was with Chief Mike Tracy was directing and Louise Bergerson was the moderator. So look forward to that. And they've got one other planned. It may be by Zoom, the next one for the diversity show. And then they'll start looking for 2023. As I said earlier, we discussed inclusion and how to make people feel more included in our community, and the Senior Center came up as one of those places, and we were thinking about compiling a list of what, places, people could join, not for any monetary reason, but just things that were happening within the community that would look more inclusive, even from lecture series and things that the libraries do. There may not be a place where people can go and just see these things and say, okay, I can go to the library for this. And it's something that is inclusive. So we were talking about the need for inclusiveness within our community. The Community Housing Opportunity Fund also met. We went through the updates on affordable housing programs moving along in the town. We talked about 3 Mile Harbor Apartments, which will have a dedication tomorrow morning at 11. We talked about 395 Panago and that are single family homes. And David, your work on that, and the 114 apartments, Kathy, your work on that. And we also discussed the second public hearing for the use of the 0.5% transfer tax for affordable housing, which is September the 15th. And so we hope to hear from the public on that as well, and remind folks that the vote on the referendum for the 0.5% transfer tax for affordable housing is November the 8th. So, and that is my report.
Great. Kate?
Yes, thank you. I attended a workshop with Ramesh Das, who is the chair of the Waterfront Advisory Committee. This was a pre-conference workshop of many, many towns on Long Island that are also looking at assessing their coastal vulnerabilities, and a number of towns on Long Island, Smithtown, Mamaroneck, Nissaquogue, just to name a few here, and then Westchester and some other towns, Ocean Beach on Fire Island, that are looking to initially write their LWRPs, because they are also noticing the changes to their coastlines. And we're very impressed with East Hampton's CARP presentation, which Sam Klein in our Natural Resources Department had given to them, and also are looking to what we've done for guidance for towns across Long Island and the state. So that they're going to have forums that begin in September. And there was also the state representative, Barbara Kenner, who represents the LWRP program in the state. I have good news for the many town members that have been talking about us, and busy work probably that's coming forward for us and the legal department. But Fred Thiel, our assemblyman, announced that legislation that he co-sponsored authorizing municipalities to reduce speed limits to 25 miles an hour was signed into law by Governor Hochul. So that does give us more control over speed limits here in town. And as far as the Springs CAC and the Springs community, this is something they've been asking for quite a long time.
As well as Wainscott.
I'm sure all the CACs will be happy to hear this. So previous to this, the default speed limit, the lowest we could legislate was 30 miles an hour. So I think this legislation, I agree with Assemblyman Thiel that this legislation will improve public safety and help prevent pedestrian fatalities. And that's all I have, Kathy.
Great, thank you. So I just wanted to touch base on a couple of things. Human Services is offering a new wellness program for adults 60 plus. It's the Benefits of Massage lecture series, with chair massage sessions. So you come to the lecture, you'll also get the instructor will be giving each person a chair massage. So I don't know, I might have to.
I was gonna say, what day, what
Yeah, so
time?
that would, so there are 9 sessions. The first class is Wednesday, August 24th from 1 to 2 p.m. And then it'll be every other Wednesday through December. We also all got invited to the senior picnic. If folks out there want to join, it's Tuesday, August 30th at Fresh Pond, and the entertainment will be provided by the supervisor, and our legislative secretary, Gabriella Gallier, will also be performing and singing with Peter.
Right.
I just did want to touch base on, we learned last week that Alexandra Kapaz had passed away at the end of July, and Alex, you know, and his family were very generous with their kindness and their community spirit when they sold to the town the 7 acres on Abraham's Path. And if I could just read from the obituary that appeared in the Star. Upon learning that East Hampton Town was in search of a property for a new senior citizen center, Mr. Kabaz offered a piece of land off Abraham's Path for the purpose. Although the parcel was highly desirable for private development, Alex felt it was important to give back to the community, the family wrote. And Alex stayed involved after he sold the property to the town. He was on our committee for selecting the architects. He gave tours of the property, and you know, our sympathy goes out to his family, and he was a very kind and beautiful man. The Springs Park Committee, which meets quarterly, met last Thursday. They got very positive feedback on the new gate that went in, but it was agreed that the committee needed to meet at the park later this week to discuss placement of benches to maximize the shade, as well as removal of some of the older signs since the new signs were installed. They also are going to discuss whether they're going to sponsor another park user cleanup day. It was so successful in June. They may do it again. You know, in September. The last thing I wanted to just talk about for a minute was the Hamptons Festival of Music. As liaison to the LTV, I heard about this, and then I got an opportunity to learn more about it. And this is a new classical music festival project called the Hamptons Festival of Music. It's the brainchild of Maestro Michael Palmer, who has established, maintained, and sustained the Bellingham Festival of Music, the premier orchestral music festival in the Pacific Northwest for over 29 years. Maestro Palmer recognized the artistic gravitational pull here on the East End, which is deeply rooted in the works of many legendary artists, and bought a home here back in 2017. And building on his legacy as one of the leading American orchestral conductors with a career spanning across half a century, he set plans in motion to create a similar yet uniquely different musical festival experience, serving year-round residents here in East Hampton. So over the span of one weekend, concertgoers will have the unique opportunity to experience 3 genres of concert performance: concertos for small ensembles, chamber music, and a full concert for a symphony orchestra. The key dates will be Friday, September 9th at 7:30 for the complete Bach Brandenburg concertos in one concert. On Saturday, September 10th at 7:30 is an evening of chamber music featuring internationally renowned classical guitarist Pepe Romero as a solo guest artist. And then on Sunday, September 11th at 4 o'clock is a full-length orchestra concert featuring Pepe Romero and Beethoven's 7th Symphony to celebrate Beethoven's 250th birth year. There's also going to be a companion visual art festival featuring Nicole Corbett that will accompany the festival. And as I said, everything takes place at LTV Studios. And folks, if they want to find out more information, they can go to ltveh.org or the hamptonsfestivalofmusic.com. And if you'll indulge me, we have a 2-minute video that I'd just like to play, because this is pretty extraordinary that we're going to have this. And this is the inaugural event, and it's, you know, ideally there'll be many more festivals to come in the years ahead. So if you could, Matt, if you could just play that video, please.
Yep, we'll do right now.
Thank you. Great.
Sounds amazing. That's going to be amazing.
Yeah, so folks can get tickets and they can go to ltveh.org or the hamptonsmusicfestival.com.
LTV's become an amazing facility, hasn't it? It really is a great asset for the community.
Okay, so we have some resolutions. I'll start. It's 2022-1016 is to appoint full-time service worker to Human Services, Pilar Suna. Pilar will have the annual rate of $37,776.75 for a 40-hour work week, retroactive to August 15th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I'd like to offer Resolution 2022-1017, appoint full-time groundskeeper 1 to the Parks Department, Alan Gregg III. He was currently a seasonal part-timer. The same position now needed on a full-time basis. Hourly rate of $21.56 an hour at $44,850.83 annually, retroactive to August 15th, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 2022-1018 is appoint seasonal groundskeeper 1 in the Parks Department, Thomas Bacuicchio, at $21 an hour, effective August 18th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 2022-1019 is to waive fees for Habitat for Humanity Home. The town board is supportive of this project and resolve that all the above mentioned fees requested be waived for Habitat and be waived by the town, and that the town agencies are directed to expedite this application to the maximum extent practicable. And that's it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Look forward to this project.
Mhm.
And I have 2022-1020. This is to waive fees for the Great Bonnet Foot Race 2022. In September, the Springs Fire Department is holding its annual Great Bonnet Foot Race, an event consisting of a 10K, 5K, and runs and a 5K walk. And whereas the proceeds from this event are used for the Springs Fire Department's Scholarship Fund, the Fire Department has requested the town board waive the associated special event permit fees. Therefore, be it resolved that the town board does hereby waive the special event permit fees associated with the Great Bonnet Foot Race.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any other matters that we need to discuss today?
No.
So I have a motion to go into exec session.
I have a motion to go into exec session for advice of counsel, and that's it, advice of counsel, and personnel.
Great. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. So it's 12:05, what
1
time?
o'clock? work?
1 o'clock work?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you. And thank